Hello and welcome to the Gathering Place. As usual, we meet on the last Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. But of course, this month we made an exception due to Christmas landing on that day and the holidays soon approaching. We decided we would move our gathering place to tonight, December 18th. So welcome everyone. For those of you that are with us here in the room, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them as we go along. For those who are listening to this as a recording, if you have any concerns or need clarity, feel free to reach out to us at our email, which is info@theocdcoach.com. And you can visit our website anytime at www.theocdcoach.com. Hi, I'm Sandra Wallace, and I am an OCD depression and anxiety coach. And I look forward to connecting with you this evening on some really important subject matters as it relates to the holiday season. The holiday season can be really exciting, and often it's a time when we are excited to be together, but it can also be a very anxiety-provoking time as well. So what I like to do is I like to be able to get together in the gathering place and be able to provide you information that will be helpful not only to become aware of certain subject matters as it relates to anxiety, but also be able to implement the strategies. So that's what we're going to do here in the gathering place this evening. We're going to talk specifically on some subject matters that will hopefully be beneficial to you as you go into Christmas and be able to apply them. And we even have a week or so to practice these strategies prior to going into certain environments. So I hope this is helpful. The first one I'm going to talk about, and I always refer to my notes, is self-care strategies. What does self-care really mean? It might mean one thing to you and it might mean another thing to me. But whatever it is that helps us to relax and be able to look after ourselves so that we are better equipped to face the day and the challenges that come up throughout the day, then it helps us to be able to go a long way in maintaining healthy self-care. So when we talk about self-care, often that refers to our routines. So the routines that we have day in, day out. If our routine gets broken, then often that will kind of throw us off for the rest of the day or for the next half a day or an hour or whatever it may be for you. So it's really important to maintain some form of routine that you have day in and day out into the holiday season. And you might be thinking, oh, I won't be able to do that. I'm way too busy. And if we're not able to do it, or we're not mindful, or we don't think about it and plan ahead, then I always say if you don't plan to achieve, then you plan to fail. So we want to make sure that we're able to plan ahead as much as possible so that we can practice those routines, even regardless of what time of season, what time of day, and what time of year. So having a schedule and carving out time for yourself. I'll tell you what was really helpful for me, I started doing at the beginning of 2024 is getting up a half an hour earlier, getting up earlier, planning my day. I usually start my day in prayer. So I was able to spend that one-on-one time with my higher power, which is God, and be able to pray and meditate, read some scriptures, and then start my day, then get out of bed and start my routines. And I found that so helpful. And also, once you start your routine, compartmentalizing it into sections of the day. Because if we end up doing something that we didn't plan, such as maybe surfing through the internet or looking at a magazine or just looking at different things on TV, then the next thing you know, an hour's gone by, 2 hours has gone by, and we haven't done what we were intended to do that day. So the more we can have structure and routine during the holidays as well, the better. So it might mean a little bit of modification for you to be able to get the things done that you need to in a day, but it's really important to be thinking about that. So I want you to start maybe even jotting down some things that would be helpful for you going into next week. That would be helpful to keep that structure and maintain it. Another thing is self-compassion. Boy, that can be a tricky one. The importance of self-compassion and being gentle with yourself is so crucial. And especially during times of heightened levels of anxiety, because even though we have anxiety day in, day out, sometimes that anxiety fuels us to do better. But when we're going through some, maybe cramming in a lot of things in a day or trying to see a lot of people, and maybe you're the hostess or the host for Christmas, so you've got added pressure on you, make sure that you take the time for self-compassion. I was talking to someone in my family about having naps, and I said to them, do you ever have a nap? And she kind of looked at me like, no, I never have a nap. There's no time for naps. And yet, when I can have a nap throughout the day, which isn't always, but to me, it's a luxury to have a nap. It resets our mind. It helps us to just rejuvenate. So even if it's a 20-minute nap, an hour nap, those are ways that you can show self-compassion to yourself. Now, another thing that will always be a factor for most people is our financial stress. During Christmas, we often tend to spend a little bit more, or we end up looking and buying things for people that maybe we don't normally buy for, or we try to buy the nicest thing, the most expensive thing. And so what I want to talk about there is create and stick to a realistic budget that works for you. Everyone's source of income is different. And sometimes we get way over our head in purchasing items, and then we're paying for it for 6 months, 8 months, for the whole rest of the next year or even longer. So all these tips can help reduce that financial stress that comes after the holidays are done. So I like to call it mindful spending. When you're looking or thinking about buying something, be mindful of whether or not that fits in your budget category, and also being able to maybe make a list ahead of time. Some of us buy purchases throughout the year when things are on sale. That's what I like to do. I also do that. There's a second agenda when I do that. It's so that I avoid going in the malls in the month of December. If I'm going into the mall in a month of December, every year for the last probably 20 years, I've told myself I'm not going in there to buy all my Christmas gifts. I'm going in there maybe just to look around, relax, take in the environment and the atmosphere. And that has helped me a lot to take away the anxiety of Christmas and deadlines. Sometimes I buy too much because I've bought in throughout the year, but for the most part, it's worked really well for me. So I don't know if that's something you would want to try. I'm just kind of throwing out different ideas. The next thing is food and eating concerns. Some of us are really nervous about gaining weight during the holiday season. We worry about what we're going to prepare, if we have to buy a lot of expensive foods. Sometimes you can make a beautiful meal that's very, very inexpensive without having to put out a big amount of money to prepare the meal. So that's another thing about thinking about what is realistic for you to be able to purchase and feel good about it. Because now more than ever, the cost of food has skyrocketed. Even fast foods, going into fast food restaurants, it's not cheap anymore. So maybe looking in the clearance section. I know when I go into the grocery store, I'll often look at things that are on sale, and maybe it's a carton of milk or a pound of butter or sour cream or cheese that's about to expire and they've marked it down 50%. All these add up in the end, right, to save us money. And don't be ashamed to do that. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's being wise and spending your money wisely. Another thing is technology and media management. This can be hard to do because we're just getting inundated with things on the media, on social media, on TV, and it's information overload. And if we spend a lot of time taking that all in, sometimes it forces us to want to do more and spend more money. So the temptations are going to be there. Just know that they're there. pause for a moment and remember to think more rationally about those things. Do you really need it? Do you really need to go out and buy the latest, greatest phone for your child or for your spouse or even for yourself? So sometimes if we just let things calm down a bit, and then after the holidays are over, a lot of those sales continue on. They'll often say during the holiday season, 40% off. But when you go into the stores in January and February, those same items are still on sale. So make sure that you're limiting your social media, and especially if it does tend to contribute to anxiety for you. Everyone relates to it differently. Everyone internalizes it differently. So if you're internalizing things that you're seeing in your environment and they're triggering anxiety, that's a sign that you need to maybe back away and just reflect on it and minimize the amount of intake on that particular item. Now, when we talk about digital boundaries, again, with the technology, make sure that it's not interfering with your personal well-being. So staying up late, going surfing a lot, canceling out other things so that you can be on the computer. And one thing with anxiety is we often will tend to avoid. So if we have the option of going out or staying in, and going out causes us more anxiety, we will often choose to be able to stay home only because we don't want to have to deal with the anxiety brought on by being in social environments. So that's something I want to talk a little bit about. Now, the last thing that I want to mention about your day-to-day process throughout the next week or two is sleep. It's important to get enough sleep. There's been lots of studies done, and sleep is vital. And on average, between 8 and 10 hours is recommended. Now, some people will say that they can function on 3 or 4 hours or 4 or 5 hours, and they may be able to do that. But in the long run, it causes a lot of damage, both mentally and physically at times. So we have to make sure that we're getting adequate amounts of sleep, and it will also help us stay focused. And the anxiety will stay at bay a little bit longer or more often because you're more rested and your mind is more rested. So try to be looking at ways that you might be able to increase your sleep if that's an issue for you right now. And just try it. You owe it to yourself to try it. Now, the other thing that I like to talk about is gratitude practices. When you implement gratitude exercises, then that will help you to focus on positive things and to be able to stay more positivity, have more positivity in your life. So the gratitude practices can be things like journaling, reflecting on your day, letting yourself express how you feel by writing it down. And by handwriting, not texting it in a notes form, but handwriting. Again, research has shown that when we write things out, we're more likely to obtain it longer in our brain than if we voice record it or just type it as an alternative. So hopefully that will maybe be something that you consider going forward. And if you're looking for Christmas gifts, or people are asking you, what can I buy you for Christmas? Maybe a gratitude journal. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Some of the gratitude journals, the one I have has little sayings, positive affirmations on it, but it might just be another book I use as a coiled book from the dollar store. It costs $2. So anything works, but as long as you have a safe place that you can sit down and write and keep it nearby so that you can go back and reflect on how things have been going. And that's a really good idea to start now leading up to the holidays. So then once the holidays is over, you can reflect back on, say, hey, what worked and what didn't work and what kind of worked, and ask yourself going forward into 2025, what can I do different to bring down my anxiety and make my day-to-day living a little bit more less anxiety provoking, a little bit more optimistic, and and being able to function better on a day-to-day basis. So the other things that I want to talk a little bit about is practicing empathy and kind communication. When we are able to practice open communication, I think that is the most fundamental thing that we can do to lead ourselves to a more positive day in, day out living lifestyle. And this can be very tricky because if you come from a family where communication has not been set or established, it might be really hard when you yourself are trying to communicate better with your family, your friends, and you're not getting that back. They're not reciprocating that back to you. You can feel like it's fallen on deaf ears. But just remember that every time that you do practice open communication, it's an opportunity to get better at it for yourself. So even though the other people on the other end may not understand it or be willing to talk openly about it, it's important that you practice it. And the more you practice it, the better you'll get at it. And empathy is much different than sympathy. And I'll tell you how to tell the difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy is feeling with someone. I don't know if you've ever heard the expression, you feel like you're walking in someone else's shoes. That's empathy. You're feeling with them. Now, sympathy, on the other hand, is feeling sorry for someone. And when we are living with anxiety or we are supporting someone with anxiety, it's really important to show empathy because for the person living with the anxiety, they don't want you feeling sorry for them. They want you to be able to understand them. And that's a key big difference between the two. So again, empathy is feeling with someone and sympathy is feeling sorry for someone. So let's get it right when it comes to anxiety and be able to support one another when we're going through anxiety, as many people are going through it at this time of year. The other one is focusing on connection, not perfection. This can be really, really hard. Sometimes we want everything to be perfect before we move forward. But you have to remember, done beats perfect. It may not be perfect. It probably never will be perfect. And we waste so much time and energy and sometimes decades doing things because we want to wait for that perfect moment. Well, I'm here to tell you there ain't no perfect moment. The time is now. So you need to be able to connect with your loved ones and the people around you without feeling that you have to have everything together. Remember, you are enough. You're enough right now, and you are right on time, and you are at this place right here, right now, because you're meant to be here and you're right on time. That's so important. Now, when we shift focus to the present, we're able to be more mindful of what's going on in front of us and around us. And that's what we refer to as mindfulness. Often you hear that word and you wonder, is that just a catchy word, mindfulness? But when you stop and think about it, if we're mindful, we're actually focusing in the moment. How many of you have yourself or someone that you know that you've gone out with and you're having this conversation with them, but they're not responding? It seems like they're somewhere else. They're kind of daydreaming, it might appear to you. That is not mindfulness. They're not listening to what you have to say. And it's maybe because they're so anxious to be in that environment. Maybe it's because they're worried about a loved one at home, or worried about if they're going to lose their job, or if they've done their tasks right at work, or whatever it might be. They may be worried about their children. They're not being mindful. So sometimes just giving a friendly little gentle nudge to them and saying, you know, what's going on? It seems like you're not really in the conversation with me. And that's sometimes enough for a person to start the conversation and say, yeah, you know what? And then start telling you the story. And that's where we can use our empathy skills. when people start sharing with us what they're going through and being able to help them, guide them through their anxiety. And that might be enough. We're not here to be experts in anything. I'll never say that I have it all together and that I know perfectly what to say to people. Sometimes it's just lending that ear, right? Lending a helping ear, a listening ear, so that people can voice their concerns and get it out. How many of you have actually sat there and listened to someone talk about their anxiety or their stress, and at the end of it, they thank you? And it's kind of funny because sometimes I think to myself, I really didn't do anything. But you were there to listen. You were there to let them talk without interrupting them. And then they know that you were there because you care about them. And there's this saying that I learned many, many years ago. People do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. I'll say that again because it's so important. It's vitally important. People do not know, pardon me, people do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. And what that speaks volumes. It doesn't matter where you come from, what walk of life you come from, how many credentials you have behind your name. People just want to know that they're heard. So think about that over the holidays, and hopefully that will resonate with some of you. Now, again, we want to align with our personal purpose. During very stressful times or during times of holidays, we need to tune into our personal values and goals. Oh, that's a hard one. Sometimes that's hard when you're surrounded by people and in situations that really don't line up with your personal goals and your personal values. But remember that sometimes we just have to sit in the environment, literally sit in the environment until it passes, that feeling of anxiety, or until we can go back to our way of living and our values. So what do I mean by that? What I always say is realign with what truly matters for you, but keep your values, keep your values and goals. When you're out and about during the holiday season, if you can just be able to tolerate other situations, different circumstances, different environments temporarily, remember it's only temporary. You're not going to have to be in that situation forever. You're not going to have to be in it for long. Sometimes in those particular situations, what I suggest people do, and I do this myself now, is I limit my time in certain environments. I know that I'm going to go in for X amount of time, and I'm going to be professional, and I'm going to be kind and considerate, but I'm going to leave when I feel that the time is up. And so I don't know what that looks like for you. Maybe there's a certain Christmas dinner that you're really dreading because someone's showing up there every year, and for whatever reason you don't connect with them or you don't have the same values or goals. Make sure that you are mentally prepared to go into that situation and have your safety nets in place. This is one area where we really want safety nets. We want to be able to control some of the environment. So it might mean showing up later and letting the host or hostess or both know that you're coming in late and that you're not going to be staying very long. And then you give yourself permission to remove yourself from that particular environment. So I guess what I'm really trying, not I guess, but what I'm trying to say through all of this tonight to all of you is know that you have choices. Know that you can be in control. And sometimes it just means it's a matter of planning in advance. So if you want to write all of these things down, mindful planning is another one. And that's the last one I'm going to touch on tonight. Mindful planning. It's just that, being mindful, making a list, writing it down. This is what we're doing, blocking off your calendar. I have a daily calendar, a monthly calendar, a weekly calendar. What are you doing on each particular day? And how much time are you going to dedicate first and foremost to yourself, for self-care, for mindfulness, for gratitude? And then how are you going to carve out the rest of your day? And remember, we always talk about how we can use our coping strategies. Start pulling out the coping strategies. On our website, we have many different coping strategies, and we're going to be giving that out as a free gift after this evening. If you're interested in having our anxiety tracker, our anxiety daily reflection, our Calm in 2025 list, and our OCD tracker, it's all there for you. Let us be able to provide you. That's our gift from the OCD coach. Our team is going to provide that to you as our gift for Christmas. So let us know. And remember that reducing commitments that lead to unnecessary stress must be a part of your holiday schedule if that's where your anxiety lies. So if you have any further questions or want to talk more, my 15-minute consult is always open to you. You can reach out and book a 15-minute free call at www.theocdcoach.com, and I'd be more than happy to get on a call with you and carve out a schedule for what your holiday schedule is going to look like. Offer you some feedback, some support in any way that I can, whether it's OCD, anxiety, and or depression that you're going through. I know that you can do this. It's just a matter of believing in yourself, knowing you are enough, and that you are exactly where you need to be and you're right on time. Thank you once again. And if you want any further information, reach out to us. We will see you in the month of January. I'm just going to look at my calendar for the gathering place. The next gathering place will take place on January 29th at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'll meet you there. Merry Christmas, everyone.